From the beginning of the film, the Western stereotype is immediately clear. The location where all the events take place couldn't be more typical. West Texas, near the Mexican border. All the main characters are perfectly integrated in this environment. They are the essential element of every Western movie. First of all, Llewellyn Moss, a young hunter who happened to find $2 million. Second, Ed Tom Bell, Sheriff of Sanderson. As he says at the beginning, his father was a sheriff and his father's father also. Third, the Mexican drug dealers. They are more like a collective character which is present throughout the film. Fourth, Carson Wells, an arrogant bounty hunter hired to recover the money. Up to this point, the Western stereotype has been followed accurately, and only one narrative role is missing: the bad guy. Our bad guy, however, looks immediately out of place. He does not dress like the old-timers, to use an expression Sheriff Bell keeps repeating throughout the course of the movie. Consistent with the Western genre, the whole story is centered around the possession of a large sum of money. The suitcase, containing $2 million, is a form of narrative center of gravity. With the exception of Sheriff Bell, all the characters share a common goal: to take possession of the suitcase. Their actions and interactions are motivated solely by the presence of the money. In a normal Western, there would be only one possible conclusion. The duel is the highest moral point of a Western movie. It represents the only honourable solution of a radical out-and-out confrontation between two characters who embody the ideals of good and evil. However, regardless of the outcome of the battle, the meaning of Western duels is always the same. The hero reaffirms himself as the hero. But this does not happen in No Country for Old Men. In spite of almost 1.5 hours of impending climax, there is no duel at the end. The death of Moss, the character we've been driven to perceive as the hero of the movie, is invisible. We find him dead. At this point, the whole Western stereotype suddenly collapses on the spot. Who's going to fight the bad guy? Who is the hero? With the death of the main character, a movie should end. But again, No Country for Old Men does not. At this point, most of the characters are dead. We're left with two main characters, Sheriff Bell and Anton Chigurh. The tight relationship between them has been hidden by the Coen brothers throughout the film. It is particularly clear if we compare two scenes. The two characters sit in the same place. They perform the same actions and drink the same drink. Their reflections in the TV screen are almost identical, except for the hat. Nevertheless, there is an interesting difference. While both Chigurh and Bell are reflected in the monitor, the physical presence of the sheriff is also expressed by the appearance of his shadow. He is somehow more physically present than his opponent. The relationship of opposition which links these two characters is expressed on many levels. They have opposite characteristics and opposite ways of relating to the land where the action takes place. Anton Chigurh is an anonymous character. We have very little information about him. We don't know where he comes from, where he's going, why he's here, if he has family, a house, friends, or, more specifically, a past. We do not know anything about him other than what we see. He is also almost completely unexpressive. He seems not to experience strong emotions, not even pain. His reactions are always controlled, but without any kind of effort. You could say that they do not exist. Anton Chigurh is a character with no roots. He is in constant movement, but in general we do not know where he's going or from where he comes. He never stops moving, except for mechanical problems relating to his car or his body. Conversely, Sheriff Bell is a man rooted to the dry soil of Texas. He has a wife, Loretta Bell, a house, a job, and a defined role within his community. When he moves from one place to another. Both his starting point and his destination are often mentioned. However, in most of his scenes we see him sitting.
This boy in the head and then went digging around in there with a pocket knife. Any word on those vehicles yet? Would you tell me if you had? There's a question. Whether they stopped being. True story. I couldn't swear to every detail.
In spite of their differences, these two characters have something really important in common. They follow rules. Anton Chigurh, in true Socratic tradition, somehow manages to ask of every person,
if the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule?
Indeed, Sheriff Bell and Anton Chigurh represent two different systems of rule. Sheriff Bell belongs to a tradition of men who made defending the law their life mission. Anton Chigurh follows a completely different set of rules.
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sir?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss?
I don't know. I couldn't say.
Call it.
Call it.
Yes.
1. The mechanism follows the simple rules of a typical tossing of a coin, but there is a specific point. Chigurh consistently asks for the coin to be called after having tossed it.
For what?
Just call it.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
You need to call it. I can't call it for you. Well, it wouldn't be fair.
2. I can't call it for you. This rule is quite clear. There is no way Chigurh can make the decisions on behalf of someone else. Indeed, if someone refuses, he keeps asking.
I didn't put nothing up.
Yes, you did. You've been putting it up your whole life. You just didn't know it.
3. The stakes in this game are frighteningly high. Everything is at stake. Basically, the coin toss is an explicit representation of how every choice we make in life actually puts at stake all we have done up to that moment. Interestingly enough, in this case, both characters will be obliged to follow the outcome of the coin toss. The result will obligate both Chigurh and his possible victim.
You know what date is on this coin?
No.
1958. It's been traveling 22 years to get here. And now it's here. And it's either heads or tails. And you have to say, call it.
4. Do you recall the first rule? Chigurh asks to call consistently after each toss of the coin. This is important because it eliminates the idea of probability. The coin is already either heads or tails and won't change. The only uncertainty is the answer.
Well, look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything.
How's that?
You stand to win everything, call it.
All right. Heads then.
Well done.
The traditional dyad of opposites which cannot coexist is represented by Sheriff Bell and Anton Chigurh. Within this uniquely American framework, The revolver is the traditional weapon which allows men to become heroes, even if they die in battle. The cattle gun redefines human beings as animals, whose death is nothing more than a mechanically induced process. If you blindly accept rules you don't understand, then you're nothing more than cattle. Let's reintroduce Moss. He, the cowboy, is a typical representation of the self-made man, the underdog who alone, thanks to his courage and strength, is capable of changing his destiny. Cowboys and sheriffs are basic characters of any Western movie. Once these characters step onto the stage, the problem is not what is going to happen, but how. In our case, the only possible way to force Anton Chigurh into a traditional Western narrative is to cast him in the role of the bad guy. However, there is a problem. He seems not to desire the money. In the course of the film, they have two missed face-to-face encounters which look exactly like traditional Western duels, but with a difference. There is a door between the duellers. The first is the encounter between Moss and Chigurh at the hotel. A shooting will follow, but with no results. The second encounter is between Sheriff Bell and Chigurh. After Moss meaninglessly died in a missing scene, this finally gives the cue for the traditional Western duel, a duel for revenge. Sheriff Bell can be a hero. He bravely makes his decision. His entrance is full of pathos, but the heroic atmosphere is immediately ruined by the fact that his opponent, Chigurh, remains absurdly hidden, with the door slammed in his face. The whole film is meant to describe the end of an era, the end of a whole society. The Western paradigm does not work anymore. It is interesting to note how the first scene holds an interpretive key to the whole movie. The Texas landscape passes in front of our eyes. In these landscapes there is an unnatural element which is repeated 3 times, the wind turbine. In my opinion, these 3 turbines correspond to the 3 main characters, Bell, Moss and Chigurh. The first turbine appears far away, in isolation, and represents Sheriff Bell. The second and the third turbine appear one after the other and represent 2 close characters, Moss and Chigurh. 2 of these turbines are working. They're perfectly integrated into the Texan landscape. Conversely, the third turbine is broken. It is rotating but has no tail. The third turbine, which represents Chigurh, is not able to adjust to the wind, to the surrounding landscape. It is stuck in its one-way direction. At the end of the movie, we discover that the 2 turbines which were working so well at the beginning are gone. The hero is dead, and the sheriff has retired and become depressed. He does not know what to do. The only character who seems immune to these changes is Chigurh. Despite his human figure, he is not a human character. He is inhuman or post-human, but for certain he is not human. He has no will. He follows rules which prevent him from having a will. For this reason, he cannot be the bad guy. He has no goals. He has no need of them or reasons to fight for them. He keeps wandering, no matter where. To use his own words, I arrived here the same way the coin did.